Welcome to Safe and Sound, sponsored by White Mountain Fire and Life Safety and Ladies Day LLC. Today on the show we have Marta Call, the Public Affairs Officer for the Apache Sitgreaves National Forest. Welcome.
Thank you, Allison.
I'm very excited to have you here.
I'm pretty excited too.
and welcome to the White Mountains.
Thank you.
Being brand new, that's pretty exciting. It's a beautiful place.
It's very beautiful.
So first off, I want to start off with what do you do for the National Forest Service?
What I do is I educate people about what the forest does. So we talk about our programs, we might talk about fires, we might talk about weather. This week I'm talking about the White Mountain Stewardship ending. I'm working on a news release for that, since that treatment is ending coming up on August 8th. And Smokey Bear's birthday is coming up, so I'm planning to do a news release about that. So that's a lot of what I do, is I educate the public about what the forest does.
Oh wow, that's wonderful. And then during the forest fires, the same thing?
Same thing. We talk about, we actually build the things, it's called InciWeb. So we build that. I mean, it's almost like a database. So what we do is we gather the information from Show Low Dispatch, and they fill out a form, and I use that form, which will tell me where the fire is at, who's on the fire, what type of team, be it 3, 2, 1, so 3 being least, number 1 being most, and what resources we've applied to that fire. And then we talk about acreage and all that kind of thing, so that people know what's going on in their community.
So InciWeb is run by the Forest Service?
It's run by the forests, the BLM, the BIA. It's run by the land management agencies.
I didn't know that, and I use InciWeb all the time. It's a very good website.
Well, and we try to post pictures and news releases and articles and just kind of keep people updated, because there's where you can go and not be calling through, calling the police department or calling dispatch or just not understanding what's going on. And we do try to keep that pretty up to date. We tweet about it. Sometimes we'll build a Facebook page for that fire, so that we are addressing every media we can, as well as newspaper, radio, everything. We're trying to get everybody so that they know what's going on that fire.
So when you got here in June, you were here for the Vernon fire.
I was here for the San Juan fire. As a matter of fact, that was my second week on the forest. I have never worked for the Forest Service. I worked for another land management agency prior to this. And so my second week on the fire, I got to play fire. I got to play with the PIO and talk to news media and put out news releases and have talking points. So whenever anybody called, we could answer their questions. We update 311. That's our job, is to make sure that the public has 311 available to them, and we update it. We keep it up to date. We're the ones who tell them what to put out there.
Exactly, and working at Navajo County, I'm familiar with that. We always wait until you guys say what you're going to say before we post something. The biggest thing is getting that information that's on there vetted and making sure that it is correct, because this is my first time dealing with a fire in emergency management for the county, and the rumors that fly and the people that are just freaking out it's insane. It's a waste of their time.
It is, and I actually keep a log of all those rumors so that I can try to find out the source of them and quash them, because we want people to know what's really going on. We don't want you to think you have to leave your home or to leave your animals or something like that without telling you what's really going on. So that's my job, is to let the public know the bottom line, the truth, the real story, not the rumor.
So when you are doing this PIO stuff, you're talking to newscasts then,
yes,
correct?
I am.
So people from down from the valley come?
Yes. As a matter of fact, the San Juan fire, we talked to CNN. We talked to LA Times. It was just AP. I mean, we talked to the big guys because they're calling and they wanted to know what's going on. Wow. They remember Wallow Fire. That was a big, big fire for this area. It's a big fire for Arizona.
Oh yeah, and they still haven't even forgot the Rodeo Chudeskai, which was 10 years prior to
Right,
that.
was in 2002. So people in this area have seen the devastating effects of those huge catastrophic fires. So yes, they're worried, and my job is to help them alleviate some of that worry.
Now, when a fire breaks out, I do want people to understand that there's a lot of chaos in the event, like during that Vernon fire. And which fire was it called again?
We called it San Juan Fire.
San Juan fire. I have to remember that. During the San Juan fire, when it started, I mean, I know from my point of view, emergency management, we got a call and they said there's a fire out here and nobody's on it yet. It's just started up, and so we're like, okay, and then we're waiting to hear from you guys, and then people are going out there, and we had one of our I guess one of the sheriff's main deputies go out there and check it out, and he went out and he took some pictures from the side of the road and sent us a video. Said, yep, there's a fire out here. But what people don't understand is when there's a fire, you still have to, the people need to dispatch that fire.
Right.
It's not like fire department's waiting there.
Exactly. A lot of times in a wildland fire situation, people think fire and they think fire department. We show up with firemen and fire hoses and that kind of thing, and that's not the way we fight wildland fire. And you do have to dispatch. It always starts out with the local agency. So Fort Apache dispatched people. They dispatch hotshot crews. They dispatch some tankers. They ask for some resources and things like that on this fire. So, but still, this is out in the wilderness. It's not 5 minutes from home.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to hike to them.
Yeah, it's a ways from home. So they dispatch their people to get out there, and in a wildland fire, you're trying to contain the fire
from getting bigger.
From getting bigger and from attacking structures, and we also have to always think about those firefighter safety.
Absolutely.
Big deal.
Yeah, because you lose them, you lose the fire as well, and they mean a lot to us. And everybody will bring up Yarnell. Yarnell was a tough situation, and hopefully that nothing like that, or we don't lose even one more.
Exactly.
More, and it's done.
Exactly.
And those guys were the best too. So that's always a hard thing when you lose anybody, but especially when you lose people that should have never been lost. With that said, though, do you remember who first responded to that fire?
It would be the Fort Apache, and they actually, if I remember correctly, and I don't wish to misspeak, but I know they dispatched at least 2 hotshot crews. Wow. So those are guys on the ground with Pulaskis and drip torches to build a line to keep it from spreading, to try to get that fire contained. And always people worry about containment. Is it contained? Is it contained? That's their purpose, is to try to get some dirt around that fire. We call it in the black. So you want black, you want burned area to kind of keep that fire from jumping over and going into brush and going into grass and trees. So that's their first priority, is to try to keep that from attacking a structure or somebody's barn, somebody's cows. I mean, that's really important to keep. That's their first priority, is let's see if we can keep it from going into houses, roads, barns, things like that.
Now, I'm curious, and I'm asking this question actually selfishly for me. Who do you guys get your information from? Because I know that we in Navajo County get our information from you. And who do you guys get it from?
Every day we call Show Low Dispatch.
Okay, so Show Low Dispatch is the one informing you of what's...
our interagency dispatch center. So, I mean, the first call we make every single morning, usually between 7 and 7:30 in the morning, is we're calling Show Low Dispatch. Do we have any fires?
Okay. And
because we recommend, if you see a wildfire or you see a fire in the brush, call dispatch.
And let them know.
And let them know. Because then they're going to notify the particular area, be it forest, be it one of the tribes or something like that, or if it's, county land or something like that, they're going to notify the correct agency and move it forward so that things start to happen.
So once this fire started going, did you guys have a pretty good connection with the team on the ground? Or how?
Oh, yes. We, the first 2.5 days, Apache Sitgraves was in charge of the fire. Okay. So Springerville Ranger District had dispatched a Type 3 team, meaning these are guys who are used to fighting smaller fires. We don't have quite the resources, you have to order those. They're nationwide resources. So initially it was our fire, so we were the chief people to talk to. We were public affairs. We were the firefighters on there. And then as they notice the fire is getting larger, it's moving into area that's becoming more dangerous terrain-wise and that kind of thing, then they ask for more resources, which means you ask for the next team, which is a Type 2 team. And that's what Springerville did. They're saying, this fire's getting big, we need more resources. They get a bigger team in there. You have more ability to order people, equipment, caterers, public information. We had 4 public information officers in addition to my boss, Pam Baltimore, and I on this fire. So we had 6 public affairs people, and that's not talking about catering and finance people, people taking care of those firefighters, you know, safety type things, and then the guys out on the ground, airplanes, everything. And so you're calling in all of these resources to deal with this fire.
You know, and from a past firefighter's point of view, I've noticed that during these wildland fires, tankers get called pretty quickly nowadays.
Yeah.
And it's because it does mitigate the fires a little bit.
Right, because they're dropping some stuff on that fire, some retardant, and hoping to get that fire, at least get the guys, and then the ground guys can get in there and start digging out some line and creating a fire break line.
I think one of the most, I guess, the most exciting things about this fire that it showed is it got to a point where it dropped into the area where treatment had been done.
I know, and we've really talked a lot about that recently in the press because that's a pretty impressive program. One of the things I'm impressed with with White Mountain Stewardship is the forest has gotten really dense in the last 100 years. And we're not going to say it was our bad fault. It was just the way we managed the forest based on politics and things like that. So we managed the forest in protecting structure and putting out every fire that came along. That was for the last 100 years. That's every land management agency. That's what we did. So after the rodeo Chetasky, they were like, man, this didn't work. Managing the forest and letting it get so dense, and all of these little small trees growing in amongst the big trees are just putting kindling out there. So we got to do something new. So what happened is Eager and Springerville actually hit like communities at risk for wildland fire. They are in a really dense populated area. There's a lot of dense tree and grasses around them, and so we need to do something. So the forest figured this out, said, this is not a good thing, and they invited people to come in and do this stewardship. Who came in and, I mean, they had a big goal, but the end result was over 70,000 acres were thinned.
Wow.
Mechanically and otherwise thinned and cleaned up. So we went up on a tour of the area about 2 weeks after the fire, and you could see the difference. On one side of the road, the trees had been thinned. So there's huge open spaces and big trees, and they burned like maybe 30 feet up the tree, and then the tree is still there. On the exact other side of the road, and this is a 2-track road, the trees were 100% killed because there hadn't been thinning in that area yet. And so here's these trees, and they're burning into the root system still, and they're going to create problems. They're going to fall. They're going to wash away during
absolutely.
rainstorms, things like that. And you could actually see the difference. It was just right there in front of your face, even if you didn't know anything about thinning and forest restoration. It was visible right there. A beautiful picture. Here, the trees didn't burn all the way up. Here, on this side of the road, every tree was dead as and will fall eventually.
And by doing that, then, the political aspect of it, who's not so sure that we're doing the right thing, knows now that, wow, you can't argue the facts.
You can't argue the fact. It's so visible. It's not like, a picture is 1,000 words, that kind of thing. There was the cliche right there in front of your face.
And it played a huge part in managing that fire.
It was. Because the incident commander, he actually said that. I mean, he relayed that to Rick Davalos, who was the acting person for that fire for us, and he said that fire laid down. So here's the fire, it climbs the trees, it's burning, and it's jumping from treetop to treetop to treetop, and the wind is catching those embers and throwing out and causing spot fires in front of it. So the fire is spreading. It hits that, and it just stops climbing the trees, and it drops down, and it burns across the ground. That's how fire always has worked.
It should work.
For hundreds of years, Mother Nature, she'd do lightning strikes, and fire burned across the ground and restored the ecosystem eventually.
Yeah.
You know, good restoration. And so that's exactly what happened. That was the really kind of cool, sexy part of it, is fire way up in the trees, burning scary. You can't even put anybody in there to put it out. And now it is. It's on the ground.
And it's
so the
manageable.
guys can manage it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, with that done, are you guys actually getting, more grants becoming available to continue what
We're
you're
hoping to
doing?
do that. That's part of what we hope to do, is to be able to, I mean, we're planning more forest restoration. We want to do more things like this.
And is that
Because
off
it's
of
beautiful.
grants that you're able to do those?
We also try to have money, a lot of times in off-season, that's what fire does,
Okay.
is they do prescribed burns or some sort of mechanical treatment or something like that, and get out there and clear out that brush and clear out that undercarriage that's these little dead and these little bitty trees. I read something that trees used to be at least 60 inches in diameter. That's a good healthy tree, and it takes a heck of a long time for something that big to burn. And you got these little trees that are 2 and 4 and 6 inches, even 10 inches in diameter. That's fuel for a fire. That's all it is.
Yeah.
So they go in and they clear that out. And so we do that, a lot of that. Our fire crews can do that. We have people who still work fire in off-season, and that's part of their job.
But the community also needs to understand that it's not like you guys have an endless supply of money and you have all the employees in the world. This is something that is project after project, and the force has got so out of hand that this is going to take some time.
It's going to take some time. It's not going to happen today. It's not going to happen tomorrow. It's going to be the next 100 years probably of us doing this, because even right there where White Mountain Stew had worked on that fire, you could see little baby saplings.
Oh.
Little pine saplings, little guys this tall, 2 or 3 inches tall. They're popping back up.
Oh, the little stinkers.
Yeah, and so they're going to grow into those little tinder guys. That's what they are. They're tinder.
Well, I'm glad that I mean, of course, you're not glad that a fire happened, but it's exciting that
Yeah.
it did happen there, and there's proof
And
that
there's
this
proof
is
that this
manageable.
works. Yes.
Now, you had told me that you went just yesterday and you got to view the Wallow fire, and I wanted to discuss a little bit of safety tips. We went from the fire and then the aftermath of a fire, and what we need to be cautious about.
I would be so cautious of being mindful that those trees and that ground are what's keeping that dirt there. Those roots were what was keeping the dirt there on, and keeping the rocks in place. So now on the Wallow fire, we were way above the 249 road and just going through some really steep terrain, driving through some really steep terrain. And you could see these huge washouts, huge boulders. I'm talking boulders that were like this big.
That just
So
got
it
carried.
Carried off, and huge logs. I mean, old trees that were probably this big around, that had burned, that their root system had been just devastated by the fire. So there's nothing to hold them in the ground, and they just took everything with them. So you're up there, if it starts to rain, be aware of your surroundings. I think that's my big safety tip for today. Be aware of your surroundings. If you're in an area that's kind of a low-lying area and it starts to rain, I wouldn't camp there.
Yeah.
I wouldn't camp there in the first place. I think that's a bad idea, because here's these trees coming down and this water and dirt and everything. It could wash your camp out.
So, and because we're having it seems to me like we're having a pretty good monsoon season right now.
I'm hoping it is.
I think it is.
I think it is too.
2 votes for yes.
Yes.
That's a huge cause of these mudslides. I mean, hopefully it's nothing like what happened in Colorado.
Yeah.
But we actually have the chance that something like that could happen in some of these areas, and it's due to fire, and like you said, burning the trees out, and now they've become a death trap.
Yeah,
in a way.
and I was looking at this yesterday, and having never been in an area that had been burned so severely, there's 100% mortality. Those trees are all dead. You're looking at these huge, big old trees, and they're dead and their root system. You can see them starting to come out of the ground. Their roots are starting to show and stuff. So I'm thinking those are killer trees. If they fall, they're going to smash something. They wash out roads when those things happen. They block roads when things happen. So we're constantly having to monitor that.
And then are campers aware when they're going out there, because it's still
There's
open?
lots of signs. There's
They need to
be
read the
aware.
signs.
Read your signs, and it'll say, we came through that Williams Recreation Area, and there's some signs, wildfire area, know where you're going, let people know, be aware that there are lots of falling trees and snags and things like that. And we closed several campgrounds.
Because of that.
Because of that. There are several campgrounds in the Alpine Ranger District that are not open because they're too dangerous.
And how long does that last? The danger, how long is the danger going to be there?
It's going to be there. I'm not going to speak to that. I
Okay,
can't.
because it's just a long time.
It's going to be a long time. We had someone the other day who asked, can I go cut fire in San Juan fire area? It's going to be 3 to 5 years before we even start seeing the forest even trying to come back. And
See.
Wallow was over 500,000 acres.
See, and that's what's devastating about these fires, not being
Yeah.
able to maintain the forest in those areas
Yeah.
because it's destroyed.
And the terrain is so steep that you would have to probably have professional helicopter logging or something like that. You can't even go and cut because we're talking 2-track road, and then it's steep terrain down like that, and then it's steep up like that, and you can't even see the top of the ridges and stuff. You can't go cut trees with a chainsaw in that kind of area.
No, and that's just going to be a danger, especially with the rain.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with the monsoon season that we have, is there any other probably safety tips that you might have?
I came from northeastern Utah, so I think it's a similar thing. There's lots of deep washes. I mean, roads, the roads follow the natural terrain, the natural geography. So, if you've got a road that's really, really kind of goes up in a dip and you look and see and there's a dip and there's water there, don't go through it. Don't assume that just because you have 4-wheel drive or you got a really cool truck or something that you're going to make it through that. Because if it's raining and water is flowing,
Yeah.
it can take you away.
It removes the traction completely.
Yeah, there's no traction. So, we put out a thing about 3 weeks ago. Know before you go. Know the weather conditions. Let people know where you are. Pay attention. Be aware of your surroundings, and don't assume that you're going to make it.
Absolutely.
Be wise. It's always better to turn around and say, oh, I can't go up that road, or I can't go through that deep ditch that in dry season I go through all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's wet now. It's muddy. It's sticky. You're going to get stuck, or you're going to get washed
And
out.
you're going to have an insurance bill and a super motorist bill.
Yeah.
And up in Utah, did you guys have the issues with lightning like we have here? We've had a few
There's
deaths.
some serious lightning here.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple people going to work Eager Days this weekend, tomorrow and Saturday. And one of the things I did was write up a job hazard, about analyzing and talking to them about. There's a 30-30 rule. I had never heard that before. So if you hear thunder and see lightning within 30 seconds of the thunder, you need to get out of there.
Okay.
Okay, and then you need to stay out for at least 30 minutes. So go in a building or your car and be out of that area for at least 30 minutes, because lightning it's indiscriminate. It doesn't care who you are. If you're out in a rainstorm and you're hearing thunder and seeing lightning, your skin starts to tingle, hair on the back of your neck starts to raise. There's no building, there's not, you're a ways from your car. It said, try to crouch down really low. Don't lay on the ground, because you give yourself too much room for but try to crouch down and be really low and separate from each other if you're in a group.
And
Don't
like you
stand real
said
close.
previously, know the weather. Don't catch yourself out in
Right.
there. I know a lot of people, I can tell you, I've probably seen living up here, luckily I've been inside, I've seen probably 12 lightning strikes, something hit something. I was an avid hiker. I like to hike a lot, and luckily I was able to find buildings when storms happen, but I've seen lightning hit trees.
Yeah, and I love a lightning storm. So, I love a good thunderstorm. So the other night we had one, I think last Friday, had a great storm. So I'm outside. It's like my first really good storm here in Arizona. And so I'm outside, and all of a sudden, and I faced the foothills in Eager, and I looked out, and not half a mile, huge lightning strike, and I kind of, maybe I shouldn't be outside.
Absolutely.
And because right beside me there's an electric pole and a little transformer thingy, and I'm like, I think I'm going to go in the house. Use your common sense. It's not a wise choice to be outside.
No, and it's the Flatlanders. Excuse me for calling them Flatlanders that aren't really aware of that. Up here in the White Mountains, I mean, you'll see as mountaineers, we'll be running,
Yeah.
running and finding a building, because we take it very seriously, because we've lost a lot of lives from it, and hopefully nothing this year so far that I've heard of.
Nothing here.
Yeah, so hopefully everything will be okay. But Marta, I want to thank you for coming on here. This has been awesome.
Thank you.
This is a great interview, and thank you again from my side in emergency management for all you guys do, because you are very helpful to us, for us to get the information we need to out to the community, and I appreciate that more than you know.
Thank you very much, Allison, for having me here.
Well, and thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on Safe and Sound.
This episode of Safe and Sound was sponsored by Ladies Day, LLC.